So we talked about a postulate before, and we said a postulate was a rule that is accepted without proof. Okay, now the other one that needs a proof is called the theorem. So a theorem is a rule that must be proven. It is not a common sense rule, therefore it must be explained or proven. Okay. Our first theorem we're going to talk about in this class is called the vertical angles theorem, and the vertical angles theorem says that all vertical angles are congruent. For example, we had named these 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we know that 1 and 3 are vertical angles, so we can say that 1 and 3 are congruent. We also know that 2 and 4 are vertical angles, so we can also say angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. On your picture, let's go ahead and do this here. Because angle 2 is congruent to angle 4, we can notate it with these little arcs. And because angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent, then we can also notate it with these two arcs like this, saying that those are equal to each other. Now here's a proof, okay? Now this is not a real proof. The real proof is a lot more complicated, but this is just a one proof with one number, okay? What I want you to do is I want you to think of a number for any of these angles, okay? For example, I'm gonna choose the number 100 up here. You can pick a different number. In fact, choose any other number, but do not choose 100, okay? Do not choose 100. You can choose any other number, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna find all these angles, and you're gonna see that vertical angles are congruent. Okay. So for example, if I wanted to find this angle here on the left here, well, I know that this angle that I just made plus the 100 degrees here is 180. Okay. So doing some math, this one has to be 80 because 80 plus 100 is 180. And what I want you to do the same thing. I want you to pick an angle. Don't pick 100. Pick a different number, and then find that angle that is forms a linear pair with it. Okay? Now, if I choose this angle 100, and I combine it with this angle to the right here, those two angles are also 180, and therefore we can do 180 minus 100, and this angle has to be 80 as well, because 100 plus 80 is 180, and those two angles are a linear pair. And we have shown that this angle on the left is 80, and so is this angle on the right. So therefore, those vertical angles are congruent. Now for the bottom angle, you can either pick the left angle or the right angle, but let's pretend I pick this left angle. 80 plus this angle here at the bottom has to also be 180 because those two are a linear pair, and therefore 80 plus what will give me 180, and the answer would be 100. And now I have shown that this top angle is congruent to this bottom angle, which they're vertical, and therefore vertical angles are congruent. For example A here, it says find the values of x and y. So we look at the picture and we say, okay, well, what do I know about these angles? Okay, well, we have two things going on here. We have a pair of vertical angles there, which are equal to each other, and we also have two linear pairs. For example, I can look at 4y and 16x, and that would be a linear pair, or I can look at 16x and 9x plus 5, and that would be a linear pair as well. Okay, so when you're doing these, one thing you do not want to do is you never want to combine the x's and the y's in the same equation. Okay, for example, you might be thinking, hey, let's do 4y is equal to 9x plus 5. Why? Because they're vertical angles, you're going to say, hey, they're equal, and therefore I can set them equal to each other. But once again, you never want to have a y and an x on the same equation. Don't ever put an x and a y on the same equation. Okay, so then we have to think about something else. Let's just look at the ones that have x's. This one and this one have x's, and therefore those two angles we had said earlier that they are supplementary, okay, or they're a linear pair. They have to add up to 180, and so our equation, if I just use the x's alone, is going to be 16x plus 9x plus 5 is equal to 180. Then I can solve for x. By doing algebra, I can combine like terms here. 16x plus 9x is going to give us 25x. Bring down the 5, bring down the equals 180. Now I need to bring this number 5 with the 180 because they're like terms, but I can't add them because there's an equal sign, so I have to do the opposite. Subtract 5 from the left, subtract 5 from the right, and we get 25x is equal to 175. Now I can divide both sides by 25 to eliminate this 25, and I get x by itself, and x is equal to 175 divided by 25 is going to be 7. Okay, so that's half of the problem because the question says find the value of x and y. Now that I have x, now I have to do is find y. Okay, so how do I find y? Okay, well, now that I found x is 7, I can do two things. Okay? I can either plug in 7 here and multiply by 16 to get the measure of this top angle, or I can plug in 7 here, multiply times 9, add 5 to get the angle here on the right. If you plug in 7 on the top, 16 times 7 will give you that this top angle is 112. If you plug in 7 on the bottom, 9 times 7 plus 5 will tell you that this angle is going to be 68 degrees. Now once again, 112 plus 68 is 180 because together they make a linear pair. So we have two options. You can either say, hey, 4y has to be equal to 68 because together they form a vertical angles, and vertical angles are equal. So 4y has to be 68 degrees. Or you can also say 4y plus 112 must be 180, and solve either one. Okay? So it doesn't matter. Okay? I'm going to solve both of them for you, but you don't have to do both. You can just pick whichever one you want.
A few moments later.
Notice that when you solve either one of these, you get the exact same answer. When you solve the left side, you get 17, and if you solve the right side, you also get 17. And whichever one you like better, there's no wrong or right way. Just whichever one makes sense to you, and as long as it's a true statement, it would always work. Alright, for example B, it's the same thing. Okay, so what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to think about, okay, like here's an x and here's a y, and say, what's the relationship? Well, they're a linear pair, and they add up to 180, and therefore I can do this 3x plus 7 plus y plus 75 equals to 180. Don't ever put an x and a y in the same equation. So what we're forced to do is we're forced to look at this angle here with the x and the angle on the other side with an x. What kind of angles are those? Those are vertical angles, and therefore I must set them equal to each other because I know vertical angles are equal. I can say 3x plus 7 is equal to 5x minus 35. And then I can solve for x and then get the value of x. Before I do that, let's go ahead and look at the y's. Okay. Now same thing with the y's. Okay. Look at this y on the top, y plus 75 and 3y plus 5. They're both vertical angles, and I know that this top vertical angle is equal to this bottom vertical angle. Okay. So I can say y plus 75 is equal to 3y plus 5.
A few moments later.
Okay, and then for example number 3, same exact thing. Okay, let's not look at the y for now. Let's look at this x angle and this other x angle. What do I know about those two angles? Well, they're not vertical, but they do add up to 180 because they make a straight line on the bottom. And this is half a circle, which is 180, and therefore I can say that 28x minus 7 plus the angle on the right, 24x plus 18 equals to 180. We can find we would do that by combining like terms, and we'd say 28x plus 24x is going to be 52x. And then I can also combine these two because they're both numbers, and 18 minus 7 is going to give us positive 11. And then I can subtract 11 from both sides. This will cancel, and I get 52x is equal to 180 minus 11 is going to be 169. And then we divide by 52, and 169 divided by 52 is 3.25. And just like the first problem, I can substitute 3.25 here to figure out the value of this angle on the left, and I can also plug it in here on the right side to figure out the value of the right angle. Plugging in 3.25 here, multiply times 28 and subtracting 7 will give you that this angle is 84. And then plug in 3.25 here, multiply it times 24, add 18, and you will get that this angle is 96. And once again, when you add 84 plus 96, that should equal to 180. Now here on the right side, I'm just going to go ahead and look at these angles here. I like to put things that are equal. It's a lot easier than adding two things instead of them equal to 180. But we know that this angle here, 12y plus 30, is going to equal to its vertical angle, which is 96. And then I can subtract 30 from both sides. This will cancel, and I get 12y is equal to 96 minus 30 is going to be 66. And then we can divide both sides by 12. And when this cancels, I get y is equal to 5.5. And that's the value of y.